Hey guys, it's Chandler, and welcome to the Healing Heroes.
I promise you.
I'm Chandler Stroud, an executive, wife, and busy mom of two, who after years of living with anxiety, health struggles, and an unshakable feeling like I should be happier, made a profound discovery that changed everything. Join me on a journey where unexpected paths lead to healing and more happiness. On this show, we'll explore unconventional ways to unlock more joy in your own life with the help of my very own healers and trusted advisors, the Healing Heroes. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to be back here with Ophira today, and we are going to be talking all things her new book and a new framework that she and her sister Tali created that really helps you action a lot of the insights astrology can provide. And in our first conversation together, we talked a lot about how astrology helps you explore yourself from a different vantage point. As Ophira talks about it, life's instruction manual, which I just absolutely love. We also learned how astrology helps us celebrate each other's differences in new ways, which was a really meaningful and impactful part of the conversation. So definitely a plug to go back and watch that first interview together. But again, for today, we're going to talk about this new system she and her sister created, the IAM framework, and her new book coming out in August that you can pre-order. And the new book helps people use astrology to their advantage and again, fully action the insights that it provides, not just personally, but at work as well, which is something that I think is really unique about this book in particular. So today we'll be talking a lot more about how this book helps you answer questions like, how can I best manage my time? How can I be more successful at work and in personal matters? Where do I do my best work? What do I need from a life partner? What healthy habits, self-care, vacations, and home decor is best for me? And so much more. This book covers everything, you guys. It is like one of the most exciting advances in astrology writing that I have ever read. And I'm so excited to have Ophira here to talk all about it today. This is going to be a good one, guys. So let's jump in. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Ophira and her work in case you missed it in our first conversation together. Ophira is one of the most sought after astrologers and intuitive advisors of our times. As the longtime resident astrologer for ELLE and the author of over 20 books, she is a private advisor to a roster of CEOs, celebrities, global leaders, and successful entrepreneurs. On television, she has appeared as a guest expert for Bravo, MTV, Good Morning America, and The Today Show, and created the first streaming reality TV dating show based on astrology, Cosmic Love, which you can find on Amazon Prime Video. Her productivity training has been presented to entrepreneurs and executives at companies including Nike and Saks Fifth Avenue. And her new book, The Astrology Advantage, will be published by Simon & Schuster in August of 24 and is what we'll be discussing together today. Ophira, thanks so much for being here. I can't wait for today's conversation.
I can't either. Let's do this.
Awesome. So before we get into the Astrology Advantage and the book and the IAM system, I do want to plug for listeners, if you want to listen to this episode and know your archetype throughout, I encourage listeners to visit astrostyle.com/IAM. And you simply enter your time, date, and place of birth, and that will spit out your archetype. And then as you're listening to this conversation, you will know if you are an innovator, an authority, or a maven, which we'll get into shortly. Okay, so to kick us off, Ophira, I think for new listeners who missed our first conversation, I'd love to just start with the basics. So can you take a minute to quickly explain astrology to someone who might be less familiar with it?
Right. Meaning they probably have read their horoscope on a blog or an app or in a newspaper or magazine, which is a fun forecast. And I write those too. But horoscopes and astrology are kind of two different things. You know, horoscopes are forecasts based on that. But astrology is the study of the positions and movements of the planets and stars in relation to us on Earth. That it's almost like a galactic GPS for life, for emotions, for decisions. It gives you a blueprint of who you are based on your moment of birth and the arrangement of the planets to where you were born. It's kind of, I call it spiritual technology. It's the instruction manual that human beings actually do come with and life comes with. Doesn't mean everything is predetermined. We have lots of free will, but it's a roadmap that we can follow. And I've been following it since finding it by accident, 30 years ago.
Me too, Ophira. Me too. I consistently check my daily horoscope, my weekly, monthly that you guys send through. I absolutely love it. So appreciate you quickly explaining that to everyone. So we're all on the same page for the purposes of today's conversation. Yeah. We'll get into the IAM framework and the archetypes shortly. But to kick us off, can you quickly speak to how astrology more broadly has helped those seeking your advice and guidance?
Yes. I would say that I've been doing this as my career for a little bit over 20 years. I went to art school, University of Michigan, and found it as this helpful tool. First for relationship guidance when I was in my 20s. It was, oh, what is he really doing? What is he thinking? It was a little pre-internet, on the cusp of the internet. So that was our, chat GPT for figuring out what was going on while dating and just facing a lot of those big decisions you face right after college. What should I do with my life? Who am I? Who should I date? Who am I compatible with? Where should I live? I initially used it for that, and a lot of people do too, for making those decisions. The average person makes over 35,000 decisions a day, the average adult. So anything that can make that easier for us is a yes for me, because a lot of us are up to big things and we don't want to be weighed down in analysis paralysis. So that's one of the best uses of it. And it can also help you understand yourself. I always say that human beings are our own biggest blind spots. So we can't see ourselves the way others see us. And astrology and knowing your birth chart can give you a little distance to observe yourself and understand your motivations. Make yourself right instead of trying to fix yourself. Like, okay, I contain multitudes. I contain a lot of complexities and contradictions. That's what it is to be human. I don't have to fit myself in a box and try to be perfect and define myself in one phrase or word. So it gives you permission to be complex and messy, which is what humans are. So when you have that is a different context for life than this kind of perfectionistic pretend culture that we live in. So people who are finding it and connecting with it are using that in every part of their life imaginable. Happier relationships, more satisfaction at work, parenting, everything.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing how it can be applied. And I know you talk about that in the intro of the book and the benefits of the system. Like, we are paradoxical beings. And I think I talk a lot, or at least I have learned to become a big believer in the power of and to just bring that to life. I think examples you used, which I really loved, is you can be a super procrastinator, but still be highly accomplished at work. Or you can be a really loving partner in life, but really appreciate your alone time. And you don't have to fall victim to the tension or friction between those two things. You can be both simultaneously. And I think that's so freeing when we can see that and embrace it.
Perfectly said. Exactly. And when I found it, I discovered astrology because my college boyfriend did a full birth chart for me as a gift. I didn't even know what that was, but I got this 30-page printout that explained all these things about me. And actually, I didn't even realize that they were things that I felt embarrassed or ashamed about, like I do procrastinate, but I was also almost the valedictorian, except for that C I got in gym. So why?
I also got that C in gym, so feel you on that.
Mm-hmm. So it was like, oh, okay, I can live in the and I'm just so grateful that I discovered that at age 21 instead of 51 or 71 or 41 or whatever. We find it when we find it, but just like, all right, it's not just okay to be complex as a human being. It's normal and it's universal.
I love that. No, thanks for breaking that down for us. I have to ask, what was it that motivated you and your sister Tali to write the Astrology Advantage?
Well, it's been a really interesting evolution to watch wellness, as it's now called, come into the world of work in our everyday lives. When I got my first astrology column at Teen People magazine, if any millennials remember that one, People magazines.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I mean, that was so fun.
All those magazines were so fun. The quizzes. I mean, I just remember going to the news store after school whenever new issues were released so I could check out the horoscopes, do all the tests, like see what was new. I loved that. Was such a part of my tween years.
Totally. Because it is so hard to see yourself the way others may and to figure out who you are outside of that. So yes, quizzes, personality tests, and horoscopes have always been big, but they were kind of, especially astrology was like, that was sort of like a woo woo new age kind of thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, even in the aughts. It was a fun thing. But as the internet and then apps and smartphones and tablets made information more accessible, when social media came along, like people were able to talk about things that were kind of fringy, or you'd have to go to the bookstore or the newsstand to read about globally. And all these ideas that were considered offbeat or not mainstream came into the mainstream. I would say in the 2010s, what started to happen was like the green juice, the yoga, meditation, avocado toast train left the station. And then workplaces started having, healthy food and healthy initiatives. So astrology moved out of the category of new age and into this kind of catch-all category of wellness. So I started being included in those sorts of things, events and gatherings, and workplaces started bringing me in. Nike brought us in to, they had an experience marketing team. They had all their directors from from their global departments, graphic design departments come together, for an annual offsite. And my sister and I did all of their charts. I spoke at the Milken Global Conference on a panel this year. Just these very think tank and corporate places have embraced things like plant medicine, meditation. I think the pandemic also kind of brought it home because we couldn't ignore that health and work went hand in hand. We had to reinvent everything. So, all bets were off. So the Astrology Advantage, what I also noticed was over the last 15 years, I've been teaching astrology to people and doing readings and consulting, and lots of business owners and very busy, successful people come to us for planning and self-understanding. And they love what they get out of a chart reading, but they cannot retain it. If you've ever seen your chart, it's all these hieroglyphics. You're like, oh my God, I need this in my life, this Rosetta Stone, but there's no way in hell I'm going to remember all of this. And so it's like,
it is overwhelming.
Yeah. It's like astrology, astrology is a marketing problem. It's got to be MVP'd. I happen to be have a online business, so I have to stay in the digital marketing and product development language too. So I thought, what if astrology was made into a minimum viable product? What if it was crunched down into one archetype, like a personality test? So we'll get into that, but there is a way of doing that we call the IAM system or framework. We've rebranded it. where you can use the power of your entire birth chart. That's 13 points, not just your zodiac sign, to get this full snapshot of yourself without having to remember anything more than just one of 3 archetypes. So it was a code I've been trying to crack for a long time.
No, that's so helpful. I love hearing kind of the impetus for you guys wanting to create something that was so tangible and accessible for people to really put these insights to work and action them immediately in their lives, which is why I was so excited to read this book, because it really is kind of an instruction manual for how to leverage these different archetypes to your advantage. And on that note, can you, since you referenced it in your answer, do you mind, can you speak more to what the IAM system is and how a person's archetype is determined?
Yes. So, your birth chart, all those squiggles and lines, is a map of, we call it like a screenshot or a selfie of the sky overhead. So it's a little diagram of like, if you at your moment of birth looked up at the sky, someone took a selfie of it and all the planets were visible. It's like where they were all arranged, all in this imaginary circle in the sky overhead that we call the zodiac, which is divided into 12 signs. A lot of people have heard of fire, earth, air, and water signs, for example. The 12 zodiac signs are subgrouped into what are called the elements. So I'm a Sagittarius, you're an Aries, we're 2 of the fire signs, and that means we're fiery and go-getters and that kind of thing. But there's another subgrouping of the zodiac called the qualities, and that's what IAM is based on. They just have astro-jargony names that we've rebranded. So what I love about the qualities or modalities is that they tell you what drives you. They're very much aligned with like what you would do in a personality test. Like, what are your motives? What are your drivers? What are the temperamental qualities that you have that make you make those unconscious choices? I think I read somewhere that like 95% of the choices we make every day are made by our subconscious minds. So
I absolutely believe that.
So this is almost like the astrology of your psyche. So and your motives. So yeah, it's something I've always been fascinated by. So there are 3 groupings and they're based on the seasons. So the first grouping are the 4 signs that start each of the seasons: spring, Aries; summer, Cancer; fall, Libra; winter, Capricorn. The solstices and the equinoxes. And those are what are called the cardinal signs. Fancy astro name. One you're not going to remember. So we rename that group innovators. That's the I in IAM, because they are the ones that like to pioneer. The qualities that they have are of innovators. They're trailblazers. They like to be first. They're a little competitive. You're an Aries. You are one of the innovator signs, but you have to do your full chart to know which one you mostly have. Okay, I'll get to that part of it afterwards. But the second group, which was the A in IAM, are what we call the authorities. So those are what are also called the fixed signs: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. They're fixed, they're rooted, they're in the middle of every season. Innovator is kind of like the hunter, and the authority is like the farmer, or they come and they clean the fish, or the whatever it's such a, I don't like to talk about those metaphors, but they make sure that the resources are used well and planned out. So authorities are often in corporate roles, or they're like the responsible ones. And then the mavens are the 4 signs that fall at the end of every season: Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. I'm a Sagittarius, so my zodiac sign is in the maven group, but I'm an innovator in the IAM system, which I'll explain. So the mavens are the ones that end every season. They're the gatherers. They're the communicators. They bring people together. So they polish everything. They give it that winning touch, or they take it out to market. So the innovator comes up with the idea. The authority produces it. The maven markets it, buzzes about it, talks about it on social media, makes the viral TikTok, gets gets everybody into it and excited about it and helps the mainstream and the masses understand it. I think about that Devil Wears Prada scene where like she talks about the blue coming from like some, innovative fashion mind to the factory to, like I would say, I don't want to insult mavens, but like I'd say innovators are like the snooty couture house, just that you wouldn't understand this high concept. The authorities are maybe like, the department store, Banana Republic. And then the mavens are like the Target collab collection or, little fast fashion kind of thing.
Got it.
Minus the sweatshop and unsustainable damage to the planet.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that.
Yeah. So
no, thanks for bringing that to life in those analogies. I think it's really helpful. I loved your hunter, farmer, gatherer. Actually, I thought that was a really cool way of thinking about the natural inclinations of each of these systems or each of these archetypes, I should say. So that was really cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah. And you're an innovator. So here you're creating the series, and you're building the plane while you fly it as an innovator. It's just
Always.
what we do, like as an innovator, I'm like, I don't know why I get this urge to sort of reinvent the way astrology is being presented. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just felt like, but there is, because a lot of people are being left out and not being able to use it. So like, how exciting to innovate a way that people can tap into it. So the reason your IAM archetype, you're either an innovator, an authority, or a maven, or you could be a hybrid of two of them. The reason that you may be a different one of those modalities and what your zodiac sign is, because it takes 13 points from your chart, kind of puts them in a blender and spits out what's called the dominant modality. So we have your sun, your moon, all the planets from Mercury to Pluto, your rising sign, and what are called the north and south nodes. Those are the destiny points in the chart, and they're really important. So 13 points of the chart are factored in, and whichever one you have the most of is which one you will be in the IAM system. So for me, my 13 are 6 innovator, 4 authority, and 3 maven. So even though as a Sagittarius, that would make me a maven if you were just looking at that one part of my chart, that's the one I'm actually the least of. What I found about this is like people who dismiss astrology because they're like, well, I don't really feel like my zodiac sign that much. Because you are your entire chart. So when you tap into this, it might seem simplified, but it's actually taking a lot of different data points astrologically and giving you just this distilled archetype that's thought through. So very nerdy, very innovatory, but I love it. I love having it.
I love having it also. It's really cool. And for those who have not pre-ordered the book yet, in the book, there's actually a great visual demonstration that brings to life how this is all plotted, the 13 planets against the 4 different areas. I won't do it justice trying to walk through it, but I think it brings to life a lot of what you're talking about in a visual way for those who are visual learners. So again, highly recommend checking it out, because I do think it's really cool that if you just look at your sun sign across those different categories, you would have been in a completely different IAM archetype than what you are, which is innovator. So it really just shows the breadth and complexity of this system you created, which I think is very cool.
Yep. But it's meant to be simple for you. So my whole explanation of under the hood, because as an innovator, I love like how things work underneath. But I know that a lot of people are just like, the reason we named it the Astrology Advantage is because this book is for people that just want the advantages of astrology without having to become astrologers. So a small part of the book is devoted to explaining how it works, because some people like to know, but most of it is just really how to do the major important parts of your life 3 ways. How does an innovator do relationships? Well, we call it the idealist. How does an authority do relationships as the attacher? How does a maven do relationships as a mirror? I was analyzing even like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, for example. Should we go there?
Yeah, let's go there. I'm always down for a little celeb analogy.
They're on their second round at this recording, but, Ben is an innovator, and the innovators are very independent and idealistic and do not necessarily always do great when they have a lot of people around them because they're really in their imaginations. So even though many of them have families, Ben included, us included, it's like you're really always trying to look for this ability to lose track of time and come up with your next Goodwill Hunting or big idea. So then we've got Jennifer Lopez, who, because we don't know her birth time, she's either an authority or a maven. If she's an authority, then she's going to be like very structured, which is going to be, and traditional, which is not going to work for him after a certain point. If she's a maven, she's going to need, that's the mirror. They need a lot of talking back and forth, showing up with the flowers and the this and the that. So she's going to need a lot of attention. And the innovator cannot give that around the clock. So if I could sit down with the two of them, following up from Jay Shetty's work or whatever, I would help them understand like how, instead of like making someone become less of who they are or get less of what they need, I think that we're being asked now in the 2020s to become fluid in every part of our lives. We're still using these analog models for work, friendship, time management, relationship, marriage, parenting. They're not working. We're all suffering inside, punishing ourselves and pretending that we've got it figured out, or else beating ourselves up and commiserating on social media. And none of that really needs to be happening. We just need this time of fluidity where it's like, instead of trying to fix Ben Affleck's maybe desire to have some alone time, even if he's married to one of the hottest women in the world, like, just what if that was normalized? What if the way, and what if she also could be, there was a book in I think the 70s or 60s called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I think that phrase
I've heard of this book
around. Yeah. So what if it could be okay that, I'm just making this up and speculating, but Ben as an innovator needed to live alone and not live with J-Lo and her entourage. And probably what's like, I'm sure the bathroom, they probably had like 18 bathrooms, but it was probably taken over by the latest J-Lo, beauty product or skincare drop. Maybe he just wanted a little privacy to be away from that. And she, maybe she, if she's a maven, needed constant community or people flowing in and out of the house. Or if she's an authority, she might have been a little micromanaging, and he might need a man cave. An innovator cave, let's just call it, because I know I need one and have one. I have several. So I'm hoping that astrology has always been like a fun, because it's so entertaining, you can sneak it in and use it to get people to talk about stuff they don't normally talk about. It gives them permission to not just follow these rules that don't work for many people, if anyone. So my hope is that, we start having more conversations about that. Yeah, you know what? I love being married and I really love living alone. Can I have both of those things? Is that okay? That kind of thing.
Yeah. And the thing that's great about that is, even if it's not, what you're doing and what astrology is doing is it is giving the space to be okay and accepting of those differences, acknowledging them. You kind of get a better perspective of where they come from. So it doesn't feel such a personal attack for Jen, let's say, for Ben to want his alone time. It's like, right. Oh, you're built that way. Like, you need that. Exactly. And it has nothing to do with me and not wanting to be with me. It's like, you just need that to feel fulfilled. And like, okay, let's build that into our time together or your day or however that needs to look, and you can at least have that conversation under the guise of astrologically, this is how this is coming together. And it actually takes the pressure off. And I think opens people up to hearing those different perspectives and constructive criticism sometimes of the way things are now and how they can change, which is what makes it so powerful.
Yep. I like to say, and I might have said this on our last convo that humanity is in the middle of a giant iOS update. And I just like, whenever, like, it's like, why is this person potentially going to be the president, or why is this happening? I'm like, picture a big rainbow spinning pinwheel and map that right on top of the earth, because that is what is going on right now.
I love that visual. That is now stuck in my mind for certainly the rest of the day, but I love it. It's like a nice way to summarize this transitional period that we're in right now. I think it's cool.
Which is why we need a show like this, and why we need, just all of these conversations. We need people to be brave enough to be like, no, Ben didn't move out because I wasn't hot enough, because, because I was demanding and had to have a certain flower in my dressing room. So nothing happened. He happened. I happened.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very cool. Going back to the book for a second, I love how in each section you provide each archetype their strengths, challenges, and what they need to do to succeed. It makes the advice and the insights you provide so tangible. I also know that you and I are fellow innovator types. So maybe from the lens of productivity, so people can get a sense of this, how can you demonstrate how to break down a topic like productivity and make it actionable for the innovators listening?
Absolutely. And I love the word actionable, because that is a driving theme of this book. Practical astrology, making it something you can put to use. I always say, like, stargazing should not turn into navel gazing. A lot of the times people will start to learn their chart or learn tarot, and then they just keep like, I mean, I've been guilty of it too. But it's not supposed to help you, make you obsess. It's supposed to be a key. That's why actually the design on the cover of the book is a little skeleton keyhole, because it's it's your escape key from overthinking everything. So let's take productivity as an example. 3 people, an innovator, an authority, and a maven, walk into a job that
listen up, everyone.
Yep.
Corporate executives out there. Well, if you work in a corporate setting, I love these examples because to your point, I think it is becoming more, I don't want to get off topic. Finish your analogy.
No, it's not off topic at all. It's completely on topic, because this is a book that is going to be read and used by all the corporate clients and readers that we have out there. There are so many people working in, the muggle world jobs, because look, this is a book for people who, are ambitious, accomplished, probably went to college, or if they didn't, will at some point, may have multiple degrees, a prestigious job, have it all on the outside, but still are grappling with the same or whatever set of anxieties and issues come up. And it doesn't matter what level you're at in your life, we all want the freedom to be ourselves. The years are short, but the days are long. A long day doing something that you hate. And it's actually not the job that most people hate, which is why I'm really glad you mentioned this topic. It's the experience of it. So the qualities, the modalities, the IAM system traffics in the how we do the job is what matters. So let's say they walk into this job, the innovator, authority, and maven, and the corporation is like, we give up. We've lost most of our workforce. We can't retain an employee to save our lives. We know it costs 5 times more to onboard a new employee than it does to keep one. So we're willing to listen and try it your way. What do you need to be productive? So the innovator would probably say, I need to not be micromanaged. I need to leave my personal stamp on something. I need to get to use my imagination. I need the freedom to experiment and be wrong, but take a risk, because I am going to potentially blaze a new trail, open a new market, bring a new way of doing things to this company or organization, but I've got to be able to experiment in order to do that. So I need trust, I need space, I need And by the way, my morning caffeine buzz is my most productive hour. So I know you want everyone to come back into the office, but if I have to commute, that's a waste of a double espresso when I'm going to do I'm going to do my best work then. So I'm going to need flexible hours. So.
Everything you just said is nail on the head for this innovator type. I have to tell you. And I do my best work in the morning after I've had that coffee. So yeah. I feel you deeply on that.
I mean, when I was, I guess, 27, I've hardly ever worked in an office because I guess I intuitively knew that I was this way even before understanding modalities. But I was hired by Gloria Steinem to come and help reinvent the iconic feminist magazine Ms. I'd had my own magazine that I started in college, of course, for women of all cultures and sizes. It was called Hues, and she discovered it and loved it and brought me in. Awesome, huge honor. But of course, it was the office. It was 10 to 6 every day. I couldn't even. And I was living in Brooklyn, had to commute to Manhattan on a crappy subway. I drink my, Cafe Bustelo and get that like super, super hyped coffee buzz in the morning, looking out at a park in Brooklyn. And all I wanted to do was sit there and write my articles for Ms. But I'd be so pissed off that I had to take a shower, do my hair, do my makeup, get on a train. By the time I got in the office, I was tired. I lost all of it. So, it just never made sense to me. But this was like 1998, 99. So there was no space or permission, or if there was, I wouldn't have known how to ask. It was still like we have to do it, you have to do it too kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and, I was there for 9 months, and then I ended up going into the .com industry and got recruited, and I left what could have been an amazing place for me to grow and for me to contribute, because I could not find a groove that was spacious enough for me as an innovator. So, there's an opportunity cost for a lot of people not being able to work to their type. So if we look at the authorities, I joke that we live in a type A world. Authorities are the ones that fit the productivity model that we have inherited, I think, from the industrial and office era best. They like certainty. They like schedules. They like a separation of work and life. Innovators were like, fine to eat at our desks because we're just like, when I'm done downloading divine inspiration, I'll come back into my body. Authorities have to have a door, have a separate area. I'm done. I'm shutting down the computer. Now I'm cooking. Now I'm knitting. Now I'm playing with the cat. Now I'm joining my fantasy baseball league. Now I'm going to a concert. Now I'm going on my vacation that I planned 12 years ago. Now I'm, I'm on duty. I'm off duty. And so the company will need to give them certainty. So they go, okay, if you want me to stay, let's just say this company is saying, what can we do to make sure you stay for a year? We're desperate to retain our employees. We'll do anything. The authority will say, I need a title. I need to know when I'm going to have my review, my salary review. I need a mentor I need a good operation manual so I know what's expected of me. Check-ins with the manager or my team. I'd like this type of desk and, that kind of thing. So guarantees certainty. I need to know that if there's a project where I'm going to have to work hard, stay overtime, I would like to plan that so that I can have my duties. And I also need something to be the authority of. I need a little turf to rule over where I can feel important, like I'm in charge. And then you'll get great work from me. So, and we'd be great if we could, use a spreadsheet or some kind of project management system for deadlines and keeping everyone on track.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, very different than the innovator. So you can already start to see how managers can maybe cater to these different types to make colleagues feel more at home and excited about the work, but have to get to Maven. So how does Maven appear in this productivity landscape?
So the Maven is going to be like, listen, I know you're going to think I'm messing around when I try to start an office softball league or organize a volunteer tourism trip for us at the end of the year, or I'm hanging out chatting, or, I'm going to be a little noisy. So you might want to put me on the sales calls. I need to connect. I'm going to be finding out everybody's kids' names and, astrological signs, or like the maven is going to be the fun and playful person. Now there are some quiet mavens, especially if they have a lot of Virgo, but like they might say like, I'd like an educational stipend. I want to learn and grow and develop my curiosity. I need to know like what is trendy in the market. The innovator likes to know the latest trends and be the first, like to see the innovations unveiled. The mavens like that too, but the mavens also like personal development workshops, team building, like how everybody goes together. And yeah, I'm gonna want to know that we're gonna do some employee kind of cohesion stuff. If you want me to stay, I need to feel seen, valued, and not just like I'm a cog in the machine around here. So I'm going to need some time. I'm going to need to ask as many questions as I need to. I'm going to bother you with questions at first, and then I'm going to be your secret weapon for selling and marketing and buzzing and hyping this place up. So that's that's a a channeled example of what the IAMs would do, and how they'd work, how they'd bring their strengths. So we have a whole thing in the book too about how they work together as well, and like the compatibility and how they'll annoy each other and how they'll empower each other.
I would love to touch on that actually, because I know in the book you go pretty deep into knowing your archetype and how it can help you at work, specifically covering things like productivity, which we just talked about, communication, career profiles, time management, workspace diagrams, team building, and more, which you just touched on. How can knowing your archetype serve you in a professional setting, specifically as you think about these three very different types coming together?
Yeah. Well, we all have to be responsible for the effect we have on other people too. Like I'm all for like live and let live, do you, fly free. But you also have to know like, okay, as an innovator, I know that I'm going to annoy the authorities on my team sometimes because, well, we all have different time zones. Our relationship to time, for example, as innovators, we're always ideating. We're off in the future. The authority might be kept waiting for us. They'll be patient to a point. And the maven and the innovator can get really caught up in a whole bunch of big ideas, but nothing gets done. So the authority might have to be like, look, I'm being too rigid. I've got to allow for space for people to dream and not be annoyed because it's cutting into my dinner plans. I have to tell that there's a hard stop and let people know, or like they may be afraid of change. We just came up with a policy for this. Why can't we stick with it? Well, the market changed. AI came into things. It's not working. So we can't just do it just because there's a process in place. If it's, detrimental to profits, for example. And then, the mavens can actually like be a little gossipy and judgmental sometimes. So they have to be careful not to like triangulate and create us versus them things. Like they are, scathingly funny and witty in their observations and maybe even their imitations of their coworkers, but they have to do it like laughing with, not at, not creating divisiveness. Mavens can also be such jacks of all trade that they start to seem like BS artists when they actually really are proficient multi-hyphenates in many different things. So they sometimes maybe have to take extra care to like finish what they started so that they build credibility, and also not to present themselves as experts in something that they've dabbled in and read a lot of, but don't have any certifications in. That can get them in trouble too.
Anyone in trouble, but I can see why
anyone,
maven
yes.
in particular. Yeah,
Yes.
no, that's helpful. Changing gears a little bit, because again, there's so much ground you cover in this book, even outside of corporate settings and work. I loved how you guys went so far as to even recommend parenting techniques in this book across each of the archetypes. Can you share a little bit more about what sets them apart as caregivers?
Oh, totally. And we really went for those hot button issues where people are stuck in this analog, rigid, non-fluid, one size fits all kind of hell because, and I call it hell because it really does feel like that for a lot of people. Like parenting is takes a lot of emotional and cognitive capital for a lot of people. And it's such ripe ground for you to beat yourself up and feel bad about yourself. And nothing good comes of that for you or your kids. But so innovators, maybe have the hardest time with parenting because innovators do not like to be embodied. We're out in the clouds, out in that quantum field, pulling in information. So the mundane world is not just uncomfortable for us. It's annoying. It's like this gravitational force that pulls us down. And parenting is just full of that for innovators. Like,
I mean, can I admit that yes, it is?
yeah. It's like, no, I don't want to frickin' make slime with you. Why do you ask?
Oh gosh. Oh, we had a slime phase too. Yes.
I mean, my parents are both innovators. Me and my sisters are both innovators, and my daughter's an innovator. So that is always really fun. We just like, my parents are visiting. We cannot make a lunch plan to save our lives because everyone's doing this. I want to do that. I was like, okay, oh my God, just got to surrender here. But yeah, innovator parenting, like really, there's a phase that everyone thrives at. Innovators probably thrive when our kids are teens and become more independent and want our advice or our insight, or someone who is like, my daughter said to me, she's like, my friends say that you should be stricter. Like, but I don't agree. Like, I feel like I can talk
she
to
doesn't.
you. Right. It's like, she has, of course, but she's like, I feel like I can talk to you about anything. And I'm like, as an innovator parent, I consider that a triumph because I want her to be able to do that. I don't want her to sneak around, which is what kids do when they don't feel like they can be themselves. So, however, I'm probably a little bit I may err on too lenient or like, okay, I'm traveling now, so you got to become independent. So innovator parents may not always give kids the consistency of a schedule that they supposedly need. So we got to outsource that. We have to have other people in the picture who are there, or just be like, I can be consistent, but it might be on FaceTime sometimes.
I love that actually, because, and we talked a little bit at that in the beginning in our first episode together about how knowing your type and your sign can help you outsource in the places where you might need a little extra support. And as an innovator parent myself, I absolutely need to outsource some of that consistency and help. I pick my spots. There are places that I love, engaging and having those conversations. I love breakfasts and I love the bedtime, but like everything in between is very much like the here and now in, this very current worldly activities. Somebody has to be at soccer, somebody has to be at speech or whatever it may be. And that's so not my jam. I'd much rather sit and have these really deep, meaningful conversations. What happened at school? Oh no, he said that to you. Well, let's talk about that. How did that make you feel? Like, I love those like growth moments. And I really want to help them with that. But to your point, the other stuff I outsource, and I appreciate Patty, our current au pair. She's amazing. And she really helps make sure that they have that consistency when I know I'm not able to give that. And that's a great example of like giving myself a little grace and leeway to know what areas I struggle with. And that's totally okay. And it's even better to ask for help where I need it. So
totally.
That's very freeing.
I mean, we have to give ourselves that permission to do that. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. You described it perfectly. It's like, yeah, let's the growth, the problem solving, the strategizing. Like I'm going to reinvent like what it means to be a teen for my daughter, and she's not going to struggle with the same things that other kids do. Like that's more of an innovator mission than like, I'm going to make sure my kid is, you know, in every activity I can possibly sign them up for. Yes, as they get older and more independent, free thinking, that's when we shine. We definitely need to outsource the younger years stuff as much as possible, or multitask our way through it and not feel guilty that we're talking on the phone while we're driving them to soccer or wherever. So the authority probably is the easiest time with those structured younger preteen years. Authorities, you know, are very modular. They break things up into windows. This is this time. This is this time. This is this time. You know, I have a friend who's an authority whose daughter is, you know, finishing high school as an Olympic bound gymnast because she worked her corporate job and then took her daughter to practice. And that was what she was dedicated to. So as long as an authority can make up their mind what they're dedicated to, then fine. They may struggle with kids who are not moldable or achievement oriented, or are a little rebellious, or need to touch the hot stove and don't listen to the rules. So for authorities who are parenting with that more little iron fist, or like a little too rigidly, like they might need an aunt or an uncle, or like an after school club, or a place where their kid can just go and just not even think about, you know, am I allowed to do this? Just to be free. Because otherwise it can have kids that do really rebel. So they have to be careful about like rules for rules' sake. Like have a good balance for your kids.
See, that's a great actionable insight for our authority listeners that can help them really evaluate, you know, is this the battle I want to pick in this moment? Because, you know, I risk going too far on that spectrum, which I think is so helpful. What about mavens?
Yeah, so mavens are super fun. Like anyone who's like their BFF of their kid or whatever is often a maven. They're the ones who like will make slime all day. Like they're all about the activity, interactivity, the play. It's like having kids as a maven is an excuse to just remain a kid forever. So, but they can also like be a little exhausting, or maybe their kids need a parent to be a parent, not a best friend. So there are times when mavens' maturity levels are a little bit subject to question, or they'll talk about like, I mean, these are the parents that will talk about sex, you know, and having it themselves openly around their kids, jokingly or whatever. Like that'll make maybe an innovator and authority be like, you know, did you really? You can't say that to your, you know, like, and then you see like, oh God, their kid, they're hanging out with the parent that's actually requested at their kids' parties, and you know, some.
Yeah, of course. It makes sense.
Yeah, we'll be jealous of the mavens. Don't get me wrong, but they also sometimes also use those parenting things as an excuse to procrastinate doing what they need to do. So they can end up living a little bit through their kids, and definitely need to make sure that like it's great that you're close and besties, but make sure you have your peer friends as well. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you for breaking that down. I think that's so helpful. And I think, again, guys, there's just so much more ground to cover in this book: personal style, home decor, as we talked about, work, relationships. And in the relationships, everything from flirting to long-term committed relationships, and what that means for you and your partner. And it's very cool. I love this system, and I love this new book, and I encourage everyone to check it out. I have to ask Ophira our last question before we bounce. If there's one thing you want readers to take away from this book, what would that be?
That you're perfectly designed the way you are. It doesn't mean that you're doing it perfectly. It doesn't mean that you can't improve behavior, choices, productivity, efficiency, but you can do it in a way that affirms who you already are, not with the lens of fixing or changing yourself. There's nothing to change. And astrology, it's a tool, not a rule. And it's a tool for helping you see where those opportunities are. Like just a little calibrate to your IAM, to your personality and truth, and you can find happiness, success, and fulfillment. It's just it's a daily practice. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that plug. I so agree with that and love the way you describe tool, not a rule, which is exactly what all of these approaches to healing and happiness are on the show. They're tools to get to know yourself better and maybe explore yourself from different vantage points. So I certainly think the Astrology Advantage is hands down a great option for those that want to dive more into the astrological space. But thank you, Ophira, for being here today. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Totally.
And to those tuning in, if you liked today's discussion, please share it with friends and don't forget to subscribe. You can also visit healingheroespodcast.com to get resources, meet the heroes, and share your ideas for future episodes. Thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, remember, be curious, be courageous, and be kind to yourself. You've got this.